Okay, so welcome back for another Flashpoint. This one is Double Agent, where we get a really good chance to stick it in the back of House Liao, despite the fact that we start out working for them, because this one takes a turn. This is one of the ones I mentioned that has no audio with it, so uh, apologies for some reason. It didn't record the audio, and I'm not going back and trying to reload and everything else to rerun the mission to get the audio, so it is what it is. Also, for the first time, I am recording with a completely different audio recording program to see if this one works any better. Wait till it is combined, rendered, and uploaded and see how it all sounds once it's actually online, because sometimes when I first render them versus how they upload, they sound a little bit different. So anyway, in this one, if you haven't been following along with the text as we're in the mission briefing here, um, House Liao is contracting you to take a contract in the MRB, the Merc contract listing for this planet, for the Taurians to take out a prison because if I remember right, they're after a special agent or something that has been captured that they want to get their hands on, who it turns out the Capellan Confederation also wants to get their hands on, and she makes the case that the Capellan Confederation is one of the successor states, while the Taurians are just a filthy little periphery nothing state because, the Capellans and the Taurians hate each other. And basically tries to talk you into the fact that why would you need to do a contract for them when you could do one for her, which will, in the long run, benefit you so much more. So I go ahead and take it just so I have the opportunity to run the mission. Downside to that for her being that it takes a turn when you get in there and find out more, and it gets a lot more complicated. And me being me and fuck the Capellans, I decide to take an alternate option to end this one, which you'll see when it gets to it. This one has a drop limit, unfortunately, so I can't take my normal lance. However, as you see, it's not a drastically lower drop limit than I'm used to. I just have to edit it a little bit. I can still take a couple of my normal mechs. I just need to put two others into lighter than they're used to. Definitely, could be worse, but have to do a little bit of figuring here because if I remember right, I was a little chemically altered at the time I played this one, so math was not my strong point at the time. But I figure it out and get into it here. Still up too much by one. There we go. Marauder, Thunderbolt, Hunchback, and Trebuchet. So kind of a combination of my medium and command lances for this one. I've also been trying to edit them a little bit differently. Uh, Try to cut things a little bit closer to not have the black screens in between, but sometimes the coming out of or going into a new screen or new part of the mission takes longer than it looks like it does when I'm editing it, so we still have the pauses. You're just not staring at a blank black screen, at least. Originally, I tried doing those to avoid having a quick jump from one screen to another to make it easier for the video rendering software, but it doesn't really seem to make a difference. I was thinking that might be where the glitches graphically were coming from, but it really doesn't seem to change anything, so I'm going to try and get away from doing it like that and try to just cut down on the dead space in between segments here going forward. I am still trying to come up with what game I want to play next once I have run out of flashpoints that I want to do, because there are still numerous flashpoints available. However, they are ones that I do not like doing. I don't enjoy them, and even if you slug your way through them and finish them up, you get, to be blunt, you get absolutely fuck all for rewards. You end up sometimes losing one or two of your mech warriors and having massive repair bills for absolutely nothing to show for it, so I'm not even going to bother doing them. they're usually ones that have drop limits or limitations on what you can use, or force you to use another unit under your command or something, and they're just dumb. They're not worth doing. They really aren't. There's also one that you do on your own that if you're looking through the systems for it, it's called Yang Vertanen's Big Score. Yang basically talks you into pulling a heist on a mech museum to get your hands on these, ancient relic mechs that this guy's not using anyway, and he's really rich, so he won't miss them. And I did it once or twice, different ways, just to see. And the mechs you don't get anything worth the effort of getting. And the limitations and everything else on the mission make it such a pain in the ass. Don't even bother doing it. I mean, if it was one that came up during the main campaign and it gave you a chance to get your hands on a decent heavy or some really good like Star League era medium mechs to use during the main campaign, that would be worth it. But at this point of the game, I mean, you have free access to literally Star League assault mechs in the market. Why would you need to risk running your good mech warriors in an artificially induced limitation of light mechs to fight your way out of a city with stolen shit that you then can't use because the missions you're running are way too strong for anything that you then get? It's really, really dumb. And there are several like that that just, why? Why? They're dumb. They're pointless. Some of these are very well written, very interesting, very compelling. They make you wonder if there's more coming. And then there's others that after you're done doing them is like, well, that's 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back. Thank you, HBS, for wasting my time. Uh, Pretty much all of the ones that are like that are still to come, and I haven't bothered doing them, and I'm not going to. Siege Breaker and Hearts and Minds are also like that. They're ridiculously complicated for what you are able to use, and the rewards are pointlessly stupid. So that's the facility we need to get. The Davions who control this facility have just, as you see, dropped a lance. It's nothing all that powerful. This isn't much of a fight. But you kind of have to do the first part to set up what comes after. Otherwise, it's, kind of weirdly disjointed. So we did the whole thing here. I mean, I could have cut this out and you really wouldn't have missed anything. This isn't all that big of a fight here. And as usual, concentrating my fire, even though the spider isn't much of a threat. I'm basically taking him out just to try to reduce the firepower coming at me. So I start splitting my fire here. Because he should be relatively easy to take out, knocked down, and missing an arm. So let's start splitting fire and doing more damage and stripping away evasive for later. Same thing, splitting fire, trying to take out two at a time here. There's the spider down. More damage done to the commando, making him more vulnerable. Sorry for the now awkward silences of not having the game noises in the background, but I don't think you want to listen to me just babble on pointlessly over nothing. It's one thing if I find something to talk about, but just babbling on and on when nothing to really talk about. There will be more coming up later on in this that I can, but this one right now, as usual, the first part of this mission is where it's simple. Afterwards is where it gets complicated. Ooh, yeah, I don't want to be in there. Saw those red outlined movement markers. Those are, as I've said before, but in case you haven't seen some of the earlier ones, those are where the dropship will be touching down. And I have lost mechs thinking that the dropship wouldn't be coming in until later, so I try to stay well away from that stuff now. Because the dropship comes in and lands on you, the mech is destroyed, and the pilot's killed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're done. So. Leopards are rather sizable. A 75 ton heavy mech is not going to exactly hold it up. You will be ground into a fine paste underneath it. I really wish I could figure out how to upload a personal insignia to this to use, because I hate that design I've got, but there's really nothing that I like in the available selections. That horned Viking helmet I figure was the least awful of the options. Oh, you got Hunchy. Yes. I love it when the AC-20 on that actually connects. Using it on tabletop, I have terrible, terrible luck with the Hunchback. I've never had a good match with the Hunchback, even though it's the command mech for my medium lance that I run. Just for whatever reason, I have terrible luck with it. It's like there's a magnet in the pilot's head of it. It always gets killed. It's like when I'm flying my flight sims, there's some aircraft that no matter what I do, how I fly them, what I go up against, I always get killed. And like literally like a random shot to the head from 2 miles out or something will kill me in them every time. Or when I fly any of the jets, be going along at full speed, nowhere near the fight, nothing visual, nothing on radar, and bam, get hit with a frickin' missile out of nowhere. I hate the jets in War Thunder. I really do. I'm all the way up to the MiG-21, and I've yet to find one I the least bit enjoy flying. I'm just trying to get in to try to get up to like the MiG-29 and the F-16 that just came out. Ain't gonna happen, because I do not have the time to devote to the jets to mastering any of the lines to get that far, but it's a goal. And I'm certainly not sinking money into Golden Eagles to unlock the shit to get it. I don't have the money to spare to begin with, sure as hell don't, to unlock a whole bunch of aircraft I really don't want to fly to get to one I might enjoy flying. So that ain't happening, but I'll still try. I've even watched all kinds of tutorials on jets and had people that are really good with them fly and try to help me out. I just have the absolute worst luck with anything that doesn't have a prop. Pretty much anything above tier 3. I mean, I do all right at tier 4 with the BF-109 G6 and G10, but pretty much anything other than that, even like the Mustang or the high-level P-38, which I love flying in any other game I've been in, I have the worst luck in them. But then again, War Thunder has some serious identity problems with trying to figure out what each tier is supposed to be for and what each class of aircraft is. Like, you get above tier 3, and I don't know why they even bother with bombers, because you have a base level B-17E, and you get jets in your opposition. So you've got a 1942 bomber against like Korean War era jets coming at you. It is so stupid the way they have that game set up. So anyway, now we're getting into this. Now we're getting into where it gets juicy. So good news and bad news. Good news is there doesn't seem to be any incoming drop ships with reinforcements or anything that we have to worry about. What's the bad news? And of course it glitches out here. There we go. The building we captured is not a military outpost, it's a Davion military intelligence holding facility. Ruh-roh. Given the setup, as he says, oh, I'm betting they have a Taurian or Capellan special agent. Nope. A Canopian special agent. So, interested third party now. And as you remember for this, I established and am still maintaining an alliance with the Magistracy of Canopus. So, considering I am allied to them, why would I hand over one of their special agents to either potential enemy? Not happening. That agent's going back to the Magistracy. So, we initially took the mission to double-cross the Taurians on behalf of the Capellan Confederation. We are now double-crossing both the Taurians and the Capellan Confederation on behalf of the Magistracy of Canopus. Yay, BattleTech! So, yeah. So we have landed on a Davion planet and captured one of their facilities to double-cross one on behalf of another that we are now also double-crossing on behalf of a third. So by rescuing this agent, giving them back to the Magistracy of Canopus, we are pissing off 3 other regional powers. Gotta love politics. Anyway. As he says, get ready, this is shaping up to be an interesting day. So, as always, take the money. There's really, from what I remember, there's really nothing of interest here for salvage anyway. Yeah. Same drop limitation as before. Trebuchet is damaged, no chance to repair, so swap it out for my swayback. Which, if I remember, is bone stock in this mission. I hadn't upgraded it. I think it's after this mission. Yeah, I just happened to look up. After this mission, I go in and upgrade it with better lasers, but right now it is absolutely bone stock. When I upgrade it, all I do is remove the small laser and upgrade all the medium lasers to the really, really good quality ones I can get from the Canopians. I leave the loadout pretty much as it is otherwise. But much more accurate and slightly harder hitting lasers, even though they're the same weight class. Because I'm all about accuracy. What good are hard-hitting weapons if it can't hit shit? I'm the same way in every game. I worry so much about my gunnery and ballistics and everything else in flight sims and all that. It's almost like an OCD obsession getting my gunnery as good as I can. I've got one I'm working on. I'm trying to put together a video of flying my BF-109 G2, trying to put one together. I don't know if I'm going to do it as a talkover or a music video type thing, but I had one mission where I had 2 bounces of LA-5s that never even saw me coming. I came swooping in at over 400 miles an hour behind them, and just with one burst, boom, blew them right out of the sky. It's so satisfying doing that. I subscribe to the Dwayne Beeson School of Aerial Combat, a why dogfight when you can sneak up behind him and hit him in the back of the head with a 2x4. That's exactly how he phrased it during World War II, so. So here you go, we are in. You see I have the wonderful glitch that I get sometimes in this computer with the skin, I guess you'd call it, of the mechs not loading, so magical glowing purple mechs. I believe one of the incoming enemy lances has the same issue, if I remember right in this one, but I'm not positive. But we have a lance of the Magistracy showed up out of nowhere. How they got here this quick when we didn't even have time to repair is beyond me. But here they are, and we have already a lance of, I believe, Capellan mechs on the field, and then, if I remember right, either a second lance of Capellan mechs or a lance of Taurian mechs that basically turns this into a four-way battle. Thankfully, it's just one lance each and nothing stupidly heavy in any of the lances. But yeah, this is a bit of a mess. This basically turns into the fight in Anchorman. 4 on 4 on 4 on 4, and nobody's really helping anybody out. Although thankfully the magistracy isn't shooting at us, and we're not shooting at them, but we do still have two unaligned hostile forces on the field in front of us. So this is kind of screwy. Oh, it's already the Taurians on the ground. It's the Liao that come in later. Okay. I didn't catch that up in the corner. I was just looking at the icons on the lances. Also, sorry for the my voice going out occasionally or the sounds of my microphone moving if those are making it into the recording. Where I'm having to sit, I have a soft spot developing in my floor. I live in a very old mobile home. Yes, I'm a broke redneck. And I had to put a piece of plywood over the soft spot so my chair is stable and I'm not worried about pushing through the floor. However, that means that I can't just roll my chair over to where my ashtray is as I'm having a cigar while I record this. So I have to keep moving the microphone out of the way and leaning across my desk to tap my ashes off. So if the sound of that is being picked up, I'll notice it obviously when I put it all together and give it a listen through, and I'll change it up next time so it's not happening. But if it does happen in this, I apologize if it's distracting or annoying. I have no idea what kind of sounds or background noises are going to be picked up by this new program. This is literally the first time I'm using it, other than one quick test to make sure my microphone was connected to it properly. It's from the same company that I use for my video recording software. The license applies to both, so the license ran out for my previous one, and I really didn't like it all that much, so why renew it? This one I basically had free access to because I already have a license, so give it a shot. Nice thing with this map, because this map does pop up several times in these missions, if you just stay in the water, especially with like that swayback, hunchback, you can basically fire at will with everything you've got, and unless you've got something stupidly overarmed for the heat sinks it's carrying, you have no concern with overheating and shutting down your mechs. You do still have to watch it. It will build up if you're alpha striking every single turn, but it takes a lot longer, and if you're alive long enough that your mechs overheat when you're standing in water, just taking on a couple of medium lances, you've got bigger worries. Also, I wanted to, during this time, had a comment on my last video when I mentioned the Lyrans playing Ride of the Valkyries as they go into battle, and somebody pointed out, no, 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 it'll be Rammstein's Du Hast. I can think of so many other German metal songs or even German metal bands that they would be playing going into battle beyond the Rammstein radio stuff that you hear. Oh my God, Icebreaker, Megahertz, what are some of the others? Fawn, a few others. They're so much more appropriate to this kind of thing. Not that I don't like Rammstein. I love Rammstein. I've owned every one of their albums, at least one copy of it. But there is some stuff that is so much more appropriate for BattleTech. More of the industrial or 80s metal sound kind of thing. Like the early 90s, late 80s metal. Some of the stuff that they're still going, but they still have that kind of vibe to them. I think that's a lot more appropriate to this setting. Because as other people have pointed out, BattleTech is very cassette futurism. Like, everything is like toggles and switches and things. It's not push button, like touch screen, smooth, slick, like the newly reimagined Star Trek stuff. It is very Blade Runner. Everything is very the future of the 1980s. Big hair, big shoulder pads. You know, I could see mechs being, having 8-track players in them. So that kind of sound, I think, is much more appropriate than like a 2000 or 2010s uh, like new metal or anything like that. Not that that stuff doesn't work. I have played MechWarrior many times listening to stuff like, oh god, Nine Inch Nails and Smashing Pumpkins and things like that. More of a grungy sound. That works too. And now, god, what are they called? I'm drawing a blank. Sabaton. If you like Sabaton, I know people that love them and people that hate them. Sabaton and Volbeat are both very, very good for playing MechWarrior 2. In fact, the first Sabaton song that I found that I happened to come across in a BattleTech MechWarrior video somebody had sent me. I'd never heard of Sabaton before that, but their song Panzer Battalion is excellent for mechs. Like, it's one of their earlier ones, so it's kind of hokey songwriting wise. The lyrics are kind of clunky, but it, it works. It's so good. Death in the shape of a Panzer Battalion as you're charging forward in a 100-ton assault mech. It works. It works quite well. Volbeat, some of their stuff also works really well because they have like a combination hard rock and country sound that works very well for BattleTech, and I couldn't even put my finger on why, but it does. Turn-based games like this, listening to music, I really don't do much. But when I'm like flying War Thunder, or when I'm occasionally will get into playing MechWarrior again, yeah, I almost always have like headphones on, blasting music, appropriate music while I'm doing it. Like, what was his name? Doug Masters and Iron Eagle. I just find it easier to focus and get into it with some music playing than just background noise. And the music they have in any of these games is usually absolute shit, at least as far as what they put in the battles. So I always find something to play myself. I mean, I play Empire Total War with Baroque chamber music playing through my computer or my phone. So I'm very much about using music for immersion and getting into things. Frederick the Great made some damn good music. Not only a good general and a good king, but actually a halfway decent composer. But it's like a fanfic because you could tell he was a flautist because he always put the flute or a piccolo like front and center of any of his compositions because when they played them in court he would be playing them and he wanted to be the center of attention, so the flute is always the centerpiece, which I can't blame him. I mean, it's good to be the king, so especially if you have the name of the great added to yours. How far House Hohenzollern fell after him. Friedrich Wilhelm, the 90-day Kaiser, he might not have been so bad. History might have gone very differently if he hadn't died of cancer. But his father was an idiot and his son was a lunatic. So, that's the world we ended up with. I mean, do not get me started on Wilhelm II. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but my family always had the lore of in our family history that my great great grandfather, who was in the German army in World War I and whose name was Wilhelm, had a bonus in his pay because he had the same name as the Kaiser. I don't know whether or not it's true, but that's the story I always grew up with. Let's spend years and years and years building a navy to rival the Royal Navy and exert our influence on the world stage, and then when a war comes where we can actually use it, don't let it out of port because we're afraid of losing it because my navy. So yeah. I mean, this is the same man that when he met Sir John French before the war and presented him with an award, because this is when Britain and Britain and Germany were still trying to be friends. Presented him with an award, and as he shook his hand and presented him with an autographed photograph of himself to go with the award, looked Sir John French, who was at the time the commander of the British General Staff in London and was on tour of the continent, looked him in the eye when he presented him these things and said, "By the way, I'm sure you've noticed how long my saber is. I assure you it's just as sharp." So, one of the first things Sir John did when he got back to Britain after that was start telling his command staff and general staffs to start drawing up plans for the inevitable deployment of the British Expeditionary Force to Europe, because after that tour, he decided it's inevitable, we're going to war with Germany, we need to get ready for it. So, yeah. The BEF was not huge, but it would take a lot of planning to rapidly move them into France or Belgium, and he was well aware of this and told his people to get on it. So, you could say a lot about Sir John French, good or bad, but he was not an idiot. I've got a whole podcast on him, Helmut von Moltke the Younger, and Ferdinand Foch, and how the commanders of those three in commands of their armies at the start of World War I, and how basically absolutely screwed they were because none of them had any real experience or preparation that would have helped them at the start of World War I. So they were responsible for what happened, but what happened at the same time was really not their fault, and I think some of them have been a little bit too harshly judged by history. But that's one of the things that being a military history buff, that you notice in things like BattleTech and all that, is they will put in is, there are, in the lore, in the novels, even in the games, there are some who, they might have been excellent battalion or regimental commanders, or they might have been good lower level nobles in command of something, but then they get put in charge of an army or an invasion force or a realm, and they are completely out of their depth, and everything goes to shit, which is very realistic. BattleTech, for all of its flaws and convoluted Game of Thrones fuckery, is also, I think, one of the more realistic future sci-fi settings as far as that goes. People are still very much people. There's not like psychic powers and magic and aliens and all this other stuff. It's humans versus humans and everything that entails in BattleTech, which I find much more compelling than things like Star Wars or Star Trek or Warhammer and things like that. I like the interplay of people, not people dealing with horrors from beyond the stars, or monsters from another dimension or realm. I'll leave that to reading H.P. Lovecraft. I don't need an entire sci-fi universe built around it. Thank you. I don't need giant hulking edgelord demons coming out of the warp to kill me. Thank you very much. People are just as capable of doing it themselves. And I was about to say I don't need giant, specially bred uber warriors in battle armor, but unfortunately, since the clans have come along, we do have that in BattleTech. They're called elementals, and I my least favorite part of the clans are the elementals, and I'm not even a fan of the clans. That tells you how high regard I hold the elementals in. Basically, figure that they're very close. If you're more familiar with Warhammer, they're very close to Space Marines. But as far as this goes, this setting, they're genetically modified, specially bred infantrymen made to use the massive powered battle armor that the clans developed. That in concept, I understand it, but in execution, it just never seems like the elementals are really worth the time and effort of having developed them. Same with Clan Aerospace. Like they have a genetic phenotype for aerospace fighter pilots, I should say, where they're much more slender. They have larger brains and bigger heads and bigger eyes for better senses and faster neural processing and all this stuff. And their aerospace forces usually soundly get their asses kicked by inner sphere lunatics and 500-year-old designs. So that was really not worth all of the time and effort going into it. Not to say that there aren't some interesting aerospace characters in the lore, just in combat, they never really seem to be worth it. So anyway, through all my rambling, we are finally through this. This was basically, that battle itself was just a stand-up, force on force. Uh, you get a major bonus to your relations with the magistracy in this one if you're not already allied with them. My reputation with them is already as high as it could go, but I was looking at it in universe of why would I, if I am allied to them, why would I then turn over one of their agents willingly to a hostile power? So, no, that was kind of a foregone conclusion with this one. So, we've gotten to the end of this. Hopefully, I don't have to re-record this one and do it all over again. This audio recording program worked okay, but we will see. So, thanks for watching this one. We're pretty much at the end. I'm going to let the voice just trail out here and get to the end of it. See you on the next one. Leave me a like and comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you thought this new program worked out, if it sounds better to you. I'm curious. If it doesn't work out, I can always go to something else, but I kind of want somebody else's feedback on it. So let me know what you think.